Hi, Cedrick. It's great to have you. I obviously know you as Cedrick Pila, but that's not the full name. So give me the full name and tell me a bit where you're from.
Okay, thanks, Reinhard. So my full name is Mabetha Cedrick Pila. And I am born and raised for a bit in Limpopo, in a small little village just outside of Mokopane. And the village is called Rapila.
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Okay, well, we are on screen share now. Let's see. Oh, there's Mokopane.
Yeah.
Polokwane. Okay. And Mokopane is here. Oh, there's Kapila. Okay. Right there. And then you guys, when did you guys move?
So then in sort of 94, 95, I moved and came to live with my parents in Johannesburg in a township called Katlehong, and it's southeast of Johannesburg. And that's basically where I spent most of my schooling, from primary all the way up to varsity.
Okay. And varsity, where did you go to?
So I went to the University of Johannesburg. And
UJ.
I mean, UJ. So I'm proudly from UJ. Of course, I mean, if you're in matric and you're looking for a place to go to school, I had to find, I guess, the nearest varsity I could commute to, because I was still living at home. And that's sort of how UJ became one of my options. And also, they just had a really good faculty of economics and finance. So UJ made sense for me.
Yeah. And what you studied commerce, speciality, something what you focus on in commerce was?
Yeah, so I did a Bachelor of Commerce in finance and investments specifically. So I sort of went into finance and investments and less so accounting.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And then, okay, well, before we start, how was varsity like?
Sheesh. I mean, varsity, I guess the transition from high school to varsity, obviously many people can relate in terms of kind of the freedom you have and all of that. But it was difficult in that I had to commute, obviously. For the 4 years that I was there, I had to commute. I didn't have the luxury of living at home. And it was tough. I mean, it was a tough 4 years, granted what was going on in my life at the time. But yeah, varsity was tough, but quite enjoyable at the same time.
And I mean, I know Katlehong is not close to UJ. I know you talked about the closest university, but we're talking here 20, 25 kilometers, if not more.
Yeah.
So how did you commute?
So I commuted mainly by bus. So I would wake up, call it something past 4 in the morning to catch the something past 5 bus. So that you could get to varsity around 7 or 8 in time for lectures. And same thing going back home is you'd catch the bus, and if you miss the bus, then I would have to take around 3 taxis from town to Katlehong and Katlehong back home. So it was quite a commute, eh?
Sure, yeah. No, I think a lot of I obviously grew up, in your terms, very privileged, so I think some kids even today can't relate to you, but certainly of my era, I mean, I stayed in a res and walked to class, so I mean, the effort and the sacrifice you put in just to persevere is so great. And Cedrick, if I can ask, I mean, I met your mom and dad, and they're great people, but I mean, I know they're not extremely wealthy. I mean, how did you finance all this? Can I ask that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you've met my parents, so both civil servants. My mom nursed her whole life. My father was a police officer, and basically my first year of varsity, my mom used part of her pension money to pay for that, and then the rest of the 3 years was basically student loans from a bank, and I had different relatives standing surety for me at the time. So it was tough, but when you get that opportunity to go to varsity, you exhaust all the means you have to try and go. So yeah, it was definitely tough to fund. And varsity is not just about the fees. You travel, you have to eat, there's textbooks. So it was quite tough. At some points, I even had to work. So that's sort of my story, I guess, going through university and financially, how I was able to afford.
if you think back, what's the lessons that you think you learned at that sort of late high school, university years? What's the big takes that you take from that time of your life?
I think certainly for me, I had to grow up and mature pretty quickly. My parents didn't have the time to sort of look over my shoulder to see if everything was okay. So you pretty much take on the responsibility of making sure that you're doing well in school and that you've got everything sorted out. So I think really taking care of myself and being accountable, at least to myself first and foremost, is probably one of the biggest lessons. Is that if you fail, you firstly fail yourself. So that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned out of that period in my life.
Sure. Yeah. And then from varsity, jobs, what did you do after that stint at UJ?
Yeah, so after UJ, I guess a defining moment in my life, I interviewed for Allan Gray. And at the time, they were doing their graduate intake. So I interviewed as part of that. I mean, my results weren't the best, but they gave me the opportunity. So I went to work for Allan Gray in Cape Town, and it meant relocating, which was something I'd never done before. I'd never lived out of home. So this is the first time I'm moving out of home, and I'm going to a different province. I've never been there before. So that was quite a defining moment in my life when I went to go and work first for Allan Gray. Yeah.
And how was Cape Town?
Oh, where do I start? Cape Town was a lot of things in one, but really I enjoyed it. I think a lot of the times when you aren't exposed to things, you don't really know what you enjoy and what you don't, right? And you don't know what you don't know. So Cape Town was an eye-opener for me. Firstly, at that time, I mean, it's my first time on a plane. It's my first time seeing the ocean, with my own eyes. So a lot of those things give you perspective.
Yes.
Yeah. So those things give you perspective.
Well, I suppose I take it for granted. I stay next to the ocean. I stayed in Cape Town all my life, so very different.
No, for sure. And that really opens up your mind to how big the world is, how big the country is, and how much there is to see. So very defining and very eye-opening for me.
And what's friendships like? I mean, I know a lot of people talk, the Joburg, Cape Town thing, and and there's sort of the stereotype ideas of, the Cape Town people don't like Joburg, and Joburg, is like Cape Town is like Slaapstad, people they sleep there, they don't really work. How did you experience work here and the community? I think, a lot of people I've met from Joburg, that was the big, sometimes why they go back. They feel that Cape Town, they don't fit in, Cape Town is like, don't allow you in, And I hear talk about all races. I mean, I spoke to Black South Africans and white South Africans, How did you feel about Cape Town?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess even going to Cape Town, you do get the warnings like, hey, be careful. Like Cape Town is quite cliquey, and you find people are very happy in their spaces with their cliques and their groups, and it is quite hard to make friends. At work, at least, I know the majority of my first friends were people that came from Johannesburg with me, and we could sort of be a band of brothers. But I think with any new place, you also play a role in how that place becomes for you. So I had the opportunity to meet different people. I mean, I lived with two white Afrikaners for the whole time that I was there, right? And that was a different experience. But you learn to discover, you learn to find your own place within that type of community. If you open yourself up, and there's a bit of luck that plays into it. And, for me, finding I moved knowing that I was part of a church that also had a sister church in Cape Town. That helped because there were people that were expecting me and people I could build community with. So I guess I was more fortunate than most people, but definitely Cape Town can be a bit cliquey and hard to make friends.
Well, I like what you say. It's what you make of it, you know. So I
Yeah.
mean, and I suppose, you know, it's the same. I'm half German. You know, if I speak to people about, and I have a lot of clients in Germany, and people who go there and say like, oh, it's so hard to fit into Germany. But the thing is, it's hard for me too if I go to Germany, and I even speak some German, you know.
Yeah.
But it is so true. It is what you make of it, you know. If you wait for people to befriend you, you might wait a long time, you know.
Of course.
So yeah, I like that. But then you moved back to Johannesburg. Tell us
Yes.
about, was that for love or for Allan Gray?
Yeah. I mean, you know me, so it was a bit of both, and I was lucky that I could move for both love and career. So I got an opportunity to come and take on a leadership position in Johannesburg through the firm, and I took that opportunity, and it so also coincided with the fact that I was in love, and there was a special lady that was based in Johannesburg that I wanted to be close to. So that worked out well for everyone involved. My family was happy to have me back. My wife now, then my girlfriend, was happy to have me in Johannesburg. And the firm was happy to have me working in Johannesburg as well. So that's how that happened, and it worked out really well.
Okay, and I mean, I was at your wedding, and thanks for inviting me. It was wonderful, really enjoyed it. So, two quick questions around that time, because I want to come to the time where you actually stepped out from Allan Gray, and I know you're now back. But before we talk about that, up to that point, what's the big lessons you learned working for a firm like Allan Gray, starting off and then the management position, leadership position in Joburg? What's the main lesson you think that you can share?
Yes, I think the big thing there for me was self-awareness, and really knowing myself. It was that the firm at the time also invested quite a lot in me, making sure that I'd become a really good leader. So I was able to go on a leadership development program and learning a lot about who am I, finding my authentic way of leadership, not trying to be like anyone, but how can I be the best version of myself? And I spent a lot of time then really grappling with who I am, what defines me. So if I could say what was my biggest lesson, it was definitely that around self-awareness for me during that time.
Okay. I like that. And marriage, tell me a little bit about the love of your life and the lessons you learned there, and that you can share, and the advice.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing about marriage is that you're never ready. You only know once you get into it what kind of a person you are, and the kind of husband, I guess, spouse you'll be. And marriage is a great learning ground. It exposes who you are. It exposes how much you love. It exposes your flaws, but it also provides you an opportunity to build yourself up. And you know, the old saying that two is better than one is so true in marriage. I've become a better version of myself because of my wife, because of her being able to show me where I lack, what my strengths and weaknesses are, and she's my partner, and we partner in every single aspect of our lives together.
That is awesome. And she's not paying you to say any of this, you know. So
she's not paying me to say any of this. I can confirm.
Okay, let's come to, you left Allan Gray for a year. I mean, you're back, but I mean, we had a conversation, and you said that was a great experience and was very needed to do. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so when it happened, I was 6 years into my career at Allan Gray at the time. And to be honest, I was very complacent and very comfortable with where I was. And I think I wanted to see what I could become, what really my potential was away from the big, strong brand. And, you know, I took on a challenge that was going to challenge me and really prove to me whether or not I'm worth my salt out there as an individual. And it helped me build myself up as a brand personally. So that was really the reason that I did that, and it worked out. And me coming back to Allan Gray was also as a result of me having left in the first place. So all of that did work out for what I intended it to, and it was a useful exercise and a useful experience for me to go through.
You say something very important, building your brand, and I think it's so important in business, because you work for a company, and we normally associate building a brand with Allan Gray or Kentucky or whoever, but you use that very well, building your brand. For young men and women out there, what do you mean by that, and what advice can you give?
Sure. So what I mean by building a brand is that we all have talents. We all have inherent talents, and my talents are different to your talents. And when I talk about building my brand, I talk about, getting to know what you're good at. And you can only do that when you put yourself in situations that are going to challenge you and bring out your potential, right? We all walk around with potential, and the only way to see what it is to challenge yourself and see what you're worth and what you can do. And all of that, eventually, when you're good at what you do, when you're good at your talents and they become your strengths, you get to build a brand, a personal identity that's linked to your talents. And that's exactly what I mean around building a brand.
Love that. Okay, Wade, last question on career. What's the next steps?
That's a tough question to answer. I think maybe what I'll try and answer it in a bit of a different way. There's a saying by Socrates that says, "Know thyself." And that saying for me is very similar to how I talk about building a brand. If you know yourself, you know what makes you happy. You know what brings you joy. You know how much is enough. You know what you like, you know what you don't like. And all of that enables you to live purposefully. So what's next for me is I just want to continue living purposefully. I want to continue discovering who I am, what I want, what I like, and not trying to peg my success based on comparing myself, but rather on knowing for me what success looks like for me. And I think that's a deeply personal thing that's able to give one peace. And that's exactly, I think, what I'm in pursuit of, being at peace with where I currently am at any given point in time in my life. That's what I continually strive to achieve.
Okay. And I know you, so I really believe that, and it's and that's quite refreshing. I mean, so many young men and women I know, if you ask them that question is, I want to be the boss, the CEO, family, my kids stay here, stay in this suburb, travel the world, but knowing you, I know what you say is really true, and I think that's maybe one of the, if more of us do that and pursue that, then how much you earn and what position you have and what you drive probably is much less important. If you really have those goals in front of you. Okay, Cedric, let's tie it up with three lessons in life. Sure. Maybe one from work, and one from family, and then anything else you want to share with us.
Yeah, sure. So I think 3 lessons in life are continually get to know who you are. That is the key to mastering yourself. So that brings about growth, that brings about you being able to chase the dreams that matter to you. Self-awareness, that's the first thing. The second thing is consistency. Consistency, I've learned that when you want to become something, you'll become who you want to become by doing the same thing day after day, month after month, year after year. And therefore, you'll have an impact on the people around you by being consistent. And then lastly, resilience. The Dalai Lama once said, when you lose, don't lose the lesson. And one of my managers once said to me, some days you're the pigeon, some days you are the statue. And I think that just speaks to resilience, that you need to learn, like all of us do at some point, that you will fall. You need to get back up and continue going and learning from your mistakes, but continue going. Those are the three lessons for me in life that I think have been super important to date.
Awesome. Cedrick, thanks for chatting. And yeah, I wish you well. And I know year on year, I might have to call you by different titles, but I'm looking forward to that, you know. So thank you so much. I really appreciate our time.
Thanks, Reinhard. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciate you spending your time with me as well.